Knives could be anything. A piece of glass with a bit of tape for the handle, that's a knife. Or it's a piece of an old file wrapped around with copper wire and a piece of timber, that's a knife too. And then you've got this other end of things, you've got this really precise penknife, it's got machine locks, it's got bearings, everything is perfect. That's a knife too. The spectrum is huge. All it's got to do really is cut.
The more you use a knife yourself, and the more you know whether you're on track or not, because the balance, the feel, the edge geometry, all these things, the difference is in millimeters between something being your favorite knife and just something that looks beautiful on the knife rack.
The most used tool you have is a chef's knife. You're cooking every day, really. Trying to incorporate a bit of craft and beauty into your daily life with that is something that really, really draws me in. When you're making a knife, you can be as creative as you want, but you always have to make a functional knife. Like, it has to be a tool that people use.
Having made my first knife, the satisfaction I got from making that knife, all 16 hours of it, wasn't going to go away. And that hit came again when I made the second one. It's there with every single knife. There's a little piece of you goes into every knife that you make. It's not as if you're churning out a mass-produced thing. Everything is unique. You'll never make another one exactly the same as it. Rather than there being one moment which I can point to and say that changed everything and crystallized it, it's an ongoing satisfaction process of being a maker, because that's what it is. You're actually making something, you're creating something. Being a maker is unlike anything else. You get something from it which is unique.
My name is Rory Connor. I'm a knife maker and I live in Ballylickey, just outside Bantry in the beautiful West Cork. My career is making knives. What that means basically is taking bare metal, bits of wood, some glue, some other odd bits of metal, and grinding, polishing, drilling, and at the end of all that process, God willing, you have a knife. How'd I get into it? Christ. Years and years ago in Eason's in Cork, you used to be able to go in and you could kind of cruise the magazines. I came across this article in Guns and Ammo, and there was an article about making knives, and I was thinking, geez, I didn't even think of that. So I bought it. After reading it a good bit, I said, I'll get this. I don't know what possessed me, because my skills were just about 1 on a scale of 1 to 10. So I started making knives. Hit all the problems you have when you start making knives, like, can I make it from mild steel? No, you can't. Wrong steel. Maybe a car spring. I need wood for the handle. What am I going to do for that? An old tabletop. Away you go. Got the knife blade kind of shaped up, filed it. Then I discovered about heat treating. Got to harden it and temper it. It would have been a good idea to soften it before you started. It could have been a job a lot easier. We had an old range at home, so I put it in the range to heat it up, cooled it in oil. What kind of oil do you need? Sure, I'd use a bit of chip fat or whatever it is. Of course, I didn't anticipate the oil would go on fire in the kitchen. So there I am with this tongs from the fire, with the knife on the end of it, this kind of metal container with oil in it, on fire, in the middle of the kitchen. My mother saying, what are you doing? I'm saying, no, I know what I'm doing. I had a clue. The learning curve was like,
My name is Fingal Ferguson. I'm based in Gobeen in Schull, here in West Cork. I'm the 5th generation on the farm. My family makes cheese, I do cured meats and salamis, and I'm also a knife maker. I inherited at a young age my uncle's knife collection. I was too young when I got them, and I bust them and broke them and played with them and sort of, wanted to fix them. And during that process, a friend of the family's, Rory Connor. Rory is a huge part of how I got into knives, because I actually went to meet him in his workshop. My family would ask him for knives for special occasions as presents for people, and that led to me putting the knife maker in this hallowed place as a craftsman, as somebody who makes these amazing objects that actually are a practical working tool. I think if you make something, it's like if you pick up an instrument. and it makes a bit of a sound that sounds kind of good, you're tempted to pick it up and do it again, and then eventually try to learn that instrument. I mean, the first few knives I made, they were good enough for me to kind of find the fascination in the challenge of it. And as soon as you get cocky in any way and you feel you've mastered your trade, something will teach you that lesson, and you'll be humbled. There's an endless journey of perfecting your skills and finding out, you know, how you can get better and better on the different aspects of the whole process.
My name is Sam Dunn. I'm a knife maker working in Glengarriff, West Cork. I sort of slipped into knife making naturally, really. It didn't really come in an artificial way at all. I just started making a knife one Christmas and went from there, really. I took my first knife to Rory and got an opinion on the knife, and just went from there, kept making. A few hundred later, here I am. I've lost track of how many knives I've made now at this stage, and I'm not even considering not making them anymore. I am going to be making more next week, I am going to be making more the week after. I just naturally knew that that's what I wanted to be doing, and I didn't see an end in sight, and I still don't. I still see myself making knives 10 years from now, absolutely 100%.
I'm Lucas Scannell. I'm living in West Cork now. I've been making knives for about 3 years now. The knives are the shape they are for a reason. They've been built up over thousands of years. So I think it's really nice to stay within the confines, but then find ways you can sort of express yourself elsewhere. Like with the handle is something I find a lot of freedom with, and just try to be as creative as possible. I think the restrictions actually do bring out a lot of creativity. With the first knife, the handle took a huge backseat because it's trying to just figure out how to do the blade, because that's the hardest part. Once I got comfortable with my technique with the blade, I felt like, okay, I'm gonna try explore what I can do with the handle now. Once the restriction of having to make a perfect blade and like having to work past my lack of kind of skill level with the blade, once that was kind of removed, I could just explore as much as I wanted with the handle, and that's when all of those ideas kind of came rushing in.
A big thing for me, I actually wrote out the process. I wrote out a list of these are the steps involved in making a knife, and I stuck to that process, and I stuck to that list for a couple of years because I needed to, because I couldn't remember what came next. I don't know where the list went, and I don't know when it went, but it did go, because it went into there, and now it's second nature, you know what you're doing. But yeah, it's just time in the saddle, I think, you know. Things that were extremely challenging at the start, you don't think about so much now. But there's an ever-present challenge, because you know, you're growing permanently, your abilities are growing. I try to keep pushing, and I think that's important really as a maker, to keep pushing and trying to keep stretching yourself. I've found what works for me really as regards trying to develop a personal style, because it's not something that you can just decide overnight, you know, this is who I am, this is the way I'm going to go, and a couple of years down the line you'll still be on that route. You won't. Like, it doesn't work like that. It's a very natural, very slow progression towards where you actually end up as a knife maker, and what I like this year might be different next year. So long as you can keep an identity throughout, I think that's the main thing, where people can look at a knife and think, I know who made that.
Okay, so the knife making process, in a nutshell, because you can go into such detail in every process of it.
The options are endless with knife making, and to people who don't really realise the scope of those options, it would be sort of mind-boggling to actually have that door open for you.
First of all, the design. I need a handle that you can find which way is up in the dark.
The shape and the design is one aspect of it. Once you have that, it's either in your mind or on paper.
If I'm forging a knife, I start with a big bar of steel, and if I'm doing a stainless knife, I start with a big sheet of steel.
What else do I need to know? I need to think about stainless steels.
The two main categories would be stainless steels and high carbon steels.
With steels, you have stainless, the toughness, the ease of sharpening, and the edge retention. You know, they're some of those sound the same, but really they're the different aspects of what a steel is capable of.
The heat treat is the most important thing.
You go through the heat treating process using the likes of the kilns, which is a lot like precise cooking.
So it all starts with just a kind of a block of steel, really, or a sheet.
Once you have the metallurgy and the process of the steel at a state where it will retain and keep an edge and has the grain structure to take a very keen edge.
I mean, there's stuff like edge geometry, so making sure that your edge is thin enough, making sure it's strong enough, and it kind of changes through to the tip.
I'm grinding it to size, then I'm boring holes in it with my drill press where I'm going to put my handle on, so I must anticipate where that's going to go. Then I'm grinding.
And once that blade is complete, you then move on to the process of putting and fitting a handle. I always feel like you're halfway. When you finish the knife on that first grind, you're probably halfway. There's multiple ways of doing handles, the hidden tang or the full tang.
When it comes to the handle materials, the world's your oyster. Dyed woods, combination of wood with synthetics like resins and plastics, and you've got people who are making handle materials out of shredded dollar bills. You've got people making handles out of eggshells, Donegal tweed.
And you can get carried away and you can go too far down the rabbit hole of everything, and it's nice to kind of pull yourself out, but those adventures are important.
Camel bone, fossilized mammoth tooth, fossilized ivory, walrus tooth, everything, you name it.
Growing the tree to make the wood to put into the knife. You know, you can go into such depth on every aspect of it.
You name it, it's there.
The balance and the weight and the feel and the comfort and the ratio and all these other aspects that are important. Once everything is perfect and you're happy with it, you put your maker's mark onto it because it has passed your quality control, and then you sharpen it. And that sharpening also is a time where you have to probably turn off all the music, calm down, relax, and put on as good an edge as you possibly can and as carefully as possible.
But the thing with knives is you're removing material. You have a certain limit to where you can go, and you have to think of like the thickness of the handle. If you kept going, you're going to have a really thin handle that doesn't work. If you keep going, you're going to have too thin of a blade that doesn't work. So you do have a limit, which is really helpful. But you're always going to have to stop working on the knife at some point, and you're going to not be happy with the knife at some point. With my knives, I can see the imperfection straight away. But I can kind of look at it objectively and go, I'm happy with it, it's finished, and then I can put it down. If I kept going, I'd be going mad and ruining knives anyway, so I kind of have to work within those limitations.
Design is very important. That's I think, an underrated aspect of knife making. If you can develop a style which works, clean lines, good function, it performs well, and looks a little bit jazzy as well, why not? Like I like a bit of colour. In my head, whether it's real or not, I feel like those knives go into homes and visitors to those homes say, where did you get that from? Like, where did you buy something like that? Because you don't see it in shops, you don't see knives with bright blue handles made of wood but it's dyed or things like that. I just like that sort of jazz.
If you get too carried away about what the expectation is of a customer for something, it could probably wreck your head. Absolutely. And I don't know personally so many of my customers. So I think that there is that element of, I suppose I am making them for myself, and if I'm happy with myself, then I'm my own worst customer in respects that you know, I have to set these challenges for myself. But I think there is a point where you are happy to let it go and let it out into the world, and then that's it. But yeah, I feel my insecurities are probably something I should probably embrace that keeps me on my toes, and I should always be on my toes. Like I said, cockiness does not help in any formal way.
So it's nice that there's so many knife makers, you know, around Bantry Bay, because that's basically where the four of us are sitting around that campfire, and you know, some people could say it's a coincidence, but it's not. Like it comes back to Rory Connor being, you know, the island's longest running knife maker, and two of the four got our start from Rory. Fingal got his start from Rory, I got my start from Rory, both completely separate to each other and probably maybe 15 years apart, I suppose.
That sharing of knowledge is a rising ship. And I think that Rory has probably been a huge part of setting up all of us as sort of knife makers, and a huge inspiration.
When somebody comes to me with something that they've made, I don't ever say to them, "Oh, it's awful. You know, you should never do that. Don't think of this as a career. Forget it. I wouldn't do that, because there's someone, they've made that, and you've got to really, really appreciate the work and the way their vision has gone into making that knife, and you've got to really appreciate what they've done, the hours they've spent on it, and even if it's not perfect or it's crooked or whatever, it doesn't matter. Keep going. Just keep going. And you know, if you want me to help you with anything, I can tell you. You know, I'm happy to share everything I know. You know, that's fine with me. I was never tight on information or anything like that, because thing is, making knives is pretty simple. It's a lot of small steps and it's very straightforward at the end of the day. But what you make will be individual to you. So it won't be the same as mine. Even if it's a knife that looks a bit like what I make, it's yours. It's what you did. It's how you see things. So you know, that's how I feel about the whole thing. I would be up the walls every hour of I'd work 12-hour days for days and days and days, and your hands don't have time to heal, and you'd be lying in bed and they'd be kind of throbbing at you, and you'd be just kind of like, wow, is it really worth it, Rory? And there's this mental conversation you'd have with yourself, and at the end of it you'd say, yeah, it was good this time. You know, over the years I'd have made a knife or two and that I really, really liked, and I'd have been very happy with that knife for probably about 24 hours. I'd have maybe even taken that knife home, put it up on the mantelpiece or by the telly, and looked at it all evening. And then the next day I'd have gone, you know what, if I'd used that wood, that would have been better, and I wouldn't do the leather that way again. I think if I was going to do a right job, I'd have done it a different way. And you just kind of move on. So you're always, you do have your eye on perfection, but really it's all about just trying to get there, you know, and you give your life to that.